Well, today's the day for some, I guess. It's part 2 of the Icebrood Saga finale. Today we're looking at the release Power. In this video, I'm going to run you guys through the patch notes, general changes for the game, and it's going to be spoiler free. I'll do a more spoiler-full video talking about the new missions themselves, of which there have now confirmed to be 4, just as we said on the trailer video before, earlier in the week. I'll do one of those later, but for now, I just want to talk about some of the general changes to the game. There have been some economy shifts, a few other small changes, nothing in terms of balance for this release, but also a little update for the whole Mac thing as well, which I haven't talked about, and I guess today I'll take that opportunity. So let's run on through and see what the devs have to say. First of all, they explain the new release Champions Chapter 2 Power. Beset by the rampaging forces of Primordus, Tyria's defenders face an uneasy ceasefire with Jormag. As the conflict grows, makeshift alliances will be tested as the Elder Dragons gather their strength, face the conflict head-on, and become the champion Tyria needs in the second chapter of the Icebrood Saga's climactic finale. 4 new Dragon Response missions are now available. Note that these missions will contain spoilers for the champion story if you play them before they occur in your story journal. It's weird that they add that little note there. Do they always do that every release? Because it's always been possible that if you just sign in for the most recent update, you'll get spoilers for the previous one. Maybe because, you know, they're all unified. It's kind of like we've got one release split over multiple different updates and months now. They kind of feel like they need to add that little notification there. As the war in the depths crashes to the surface, old allies return to welcome new heroes to their fight. The Delgamore Dwarves, stone-formed enemy of the Destroyers, are marshalling in the Eye of the North. Complete daily achievements on their behalf to aid their efforts and earn rewards. As the world completes tiers of progress, everyone who helped will earn extra rewards from their representative, Ogden Stonehealer. And so, yeah, when you log in, I'm not quite sure what footage I'll use in the background here, but when you first log in, you actually get a mail from Ogden. I'm looking forward to see what they do with the story here, and I'm sure some of you guys down in the comments can fill me in on that have played the release already, as to what they do, because Ogden to me has always been one of those massively underutilized characters in the story, and if they really are going fully into a Primordus arc here, and the Delgamore Dwarves are a big part of this release, now is the time to really do something cool with him, and we'll see what that is. So they have an update for the start of the missions here. Completing all 3 initial objectives in a DRM will now immediately progress the mission to the next event. If you guys don't know what this means, I think what they're talking about is, you know, when you jump into a Dragon Response mission, say you're doing it public, they have like that lobby kind of phase where there are bonus events you can do for morale and just sort of kill the time. Well, if they all get completed, you're likely to have a full party at that point, and so they'll just run straight on in. I wonder if they'll retroactively change this for the previous ones, and for that matter, what about Forging Steel, the strike mission with the char and the tank? Did that functionality's not already in there on that one, right? So it'd be kind of nice as quality of life. I can see why they did it. Dragon Response missions will no longer close when the party leader leaves the instance, and they say as a side effect of this, the quest log is currently not shown in private instances of Dragon Response missions. Quest progress is still gained on completion, and the display issue is under investigation. No idea. That sounds like some spaghetti code weirdness there, though. But I appreciate the quality of life change. DRM boundaries will now uniformly push players back rather than eject them if they're in a private mission. So, you know, you go outside of the range and it will say turn back or you get kicked. This functionality of actually pushing people back into the boundaries, I actually wonder if we'll see this being utilized a lot in the next expansion, End of Dragons, because that seems like something that could have existed through any of this, and if now they figured out how to make it work, then surely they'll use it going forwards, right? They've made a change for the scaling here. Baseline health for champion level enemies in DRMs has been standardized to set a more even experience across the missions. Some champions will have slightly lower health, and some will have slightly more or be unchanged. And they say the scaling and damage reduction modifiers granted by the challenging effect has been adjusted. With the relevant challenge modes active, a group of 5 will see a decrease in enemy durability, i.e. it'll be easier in challenge mode now, which I'm not sure what the call for that is, while smaller groups will see a more pronounced decrease and more consistent curve in difficulty based on party size. So I kind of half like this. I don't like the idea that even more challenge is being removed from these. I didn't feel like they were that out of the ordinary. But the idea that I could just go in with 1 friend or just 2 friends and play the challenges and actually still have a real experience, that's pretty cool. And hopefully that means that more casual players will be more encouraged to do the challenge modes and learn more about the game and get more invested. So overall, I like the idea. Next, they talk a bit about spirit shards. So this is general stuff, not to do with the new patch, which are undergoing a bit of a change. They say spirit shards were designed as an end-game currency that fuels player interactions with the Mystic Forge. Whether this was for promoting materials, generating unique equipment, or working towards a legendary item, the spirit shard cost reflects a time investment spent engaging in gameplay. Now, you'll notice their description there is a lot like how karma was meant to function as a currency too. They say, over the years, we've monitored the acquisition of spirit shards, and we've come to a determination that allowing them to drop from champion loot bags has both devalued them as a currency and also created restrictions on how we use champions in encounters. For these reasons, we have made the decision to remove spirit shards from the drop tables of champ bags. They will still be available from every other existing source, i.e. leveling up, tomes, stuff like that, but we will be closely monitoring how this change affects the game's economy. And they say they remove spirit shards as a potential drop from champion loot bags. So I don't know whether this will actually cause that much of a change in the economy. I personally have a ton of spirit shards, but I've never really thought of myself as having got them from champ bags more than anything else. I think it'd be really interesting to learn just what proportion of those spirit shards I do owe to champ bags, because maybe it's way more than I realize. But in general, I'm in favor of this change. I like the idea that each currency in the game has real meaning, and spirit shards I've had way too many of for way too long. Now, I'm well aware that spirit shards do have value, particularly to top-end traders who like to trade around in legendaries, but they don't have the playtime themselves, so they buy spirit shards from other people through like trading guilds and stuff. And whether that ripples in any meaningful way, I guess we'll just have to sit back and watch. But yeah, I like that the devs are really playing around with a core currency here. It makes me feel like they really care about some of these things at the heart of Guild Wars 2, and I like it. They also say here that item filters in the trading post now support attribute filtering for concentration and expertise, which you couldn't do before. I'm wondering if maybe in the next X-Pack, or hell, even some Living World coming up, we'll find some new gear sets that have those more prominently, and they know that people will be asking for this, if people hadn't already been asking for it, but there you go. Just a bit of consistency too. Speaking of consistency, there's a lot of items in the game which are currently account bound on Acquire, which are now becoming tradable. So while this is something I've never really seen people asking for, there's a lot of good reason to do this, but it does come with some little niggling issues they have to work out. So here's what they have to say. Some items are becoming tradable. For the following notes regarding items becoming tradable, existing account-bound items will remain account-bound, but items acquired after updating the client will be unbound. So I know what you're thinking now. Well, what about all my items that I now want to trade, but they're account bound? How do I change those? They say that updated materials can be unbound by depositing them into material storage, which is weird to me because not everything on this list of the items they've changed now are depositable into material storage. But there you go. I guess the idea is you deposit it, you withdraw it, and now it's tradable. And we've seen that the studio's gone through this issue multiple times with other items in the past. This one feels like a good solution. Here's what's becoming tradable, though. Crafted exotic equipment with certain attribute prefixes, i.e. all the ones that are account bound right now that you've always wondered why are they account bound, well, they're becoming tradable. So you will now be able to buy celestial gear on the TP, commanders, crusader, grieving, marauder, minstrel, nomad, seraph, sinister, trailblazer, vigilant, viper, wanderer, and zealots. That of course then affects all of the unique materials that you would use to craft those into, but I doubt it will really affect the economy too much. They also say many account-bound, non-ascended food consumables are now tradable. So I wonder what that means. Does that mean like when you buy like meatballs from a karma vendor or something and it's account-bound because you spent karma, so naturally most things that come out of karma are account-bound? That's no longer going to be. I mean, there's so many cool markets that only exist for lower level players, therefore they're completely ignored in the game of today, that I think most of these account-bound food consumables are going to fall into. Account-bound sharpening stones, maintenance oils, focusing crystals, exquisite serpentite jewels, and those jewels now drop from dragon crystal nodes in the Thunderhead Peaks, as well as your home instance. These next two are interesting to me as far as the new expansion is concerned. They've increased the drop rate of Maguma Lilies, and they've said that Aether Blades now drop sprockets directly as well as blade shards. Now, I noticed that both of these are kind of widely traded among guild decorations and guild features and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if maybe there's some kind of new sync coming for them in End of Dragons. I don't know, I always look at patch notes around now thinking how that might affect the upcoming X-Pack. The watchwork mechanism now is just 250 sprockets instead of 500. I mean, how many people were really still crafting these? But it's interesting to me to see that the devs still care about this and look at this part of the game. And again, another guild thing. Look at this. Linseed oil is now just 15 flax instead of 20. Trying to keep that market in check. Celestial Orichalcum imbued inscriptions are just 2 charged quartz instead of 5. I'm spending all my charged quartz on provisional tokens these days, but there it is. And then the same thing has happened for the insignia as well as the inscription. They've got the base crafting time for cloth, metal, and wood going down by half from 1 second to 2 seconds, so you can craft that stuff a bit quicker, I guess. Fun. They're looking at the doubloon market as well, and they say many sources in Living World Season 4 and Icebrood Saga that was dropping gold doubloons now has a chance to drop silver, gold, or platinum ones. And not even the infusion market is safe. It seems that they're making infusions more readily accessible. Now, these changes I'm about to list out here, I kind of wish ArenaNet put out in their own separate patch all on their own, because I can imagine if that had happened, a good chunk of the active community would have then been compelled to play the associated infusion content, like quite a lot, but now it's just sort of buried in a much larger patch. But here, check it out. They say they've increased the drop rate of the Charged Quartz Orichalcum Amulet, which is the Chak Egg Sack, from the Chak Gerent. So Chak Gerent will drop egg sacks more regularly. They've increased the drop rate for the Festive Confetti Infusion from the Choya Pinata. And then they fixed a bug that was causing it not to display properly. And even the Heart of the Carneur, this is the last one, which comes from the Recovered Shard artifact, the drop rate on that has increased. So you can go back to the original map of this saga and try your luck at that a little bit more. Or for me, I actually get most of these Recovered Shard artifacts from playing Drizzlewood now. And maybe I'll actually start picking them up. It feels like a complete gamble to me, though, even though they might have bumped these rates. It depends by how much, right? So anyway, yeah, those are the ones they changed. Obviously, there are more infusions in the game, but those are the main ones they looked at. Some adjustments have been made to the sorting of items and material storage to align related items more closely. Now, I did try to get a bit of footage of the material storage for you guys, and honestly, I couldn't really see what they'd shuffled. Maybe someone in the comments can help me out there. Wooden plank consumable is no longer usable. The plank was one of the consumables that kind of slipped through the cracks of the previous update, trying to get rid of consumables, specifically in fractals. I mean, dungeons kind of get grandfathered into, but fractals was the main thing. I did say at the time of that release that the devs would probably miss some stuff, and you know, they'll keep nipping them in. I think there may even still be 1 or 2 more items out there. And then finally, some DRM economy stuff. The content preview of faction supply boxes available in the Eye of the North vendors now shows the minimum quantities of materials available, and prismantium ingots are now tradable. Couldn't we trade prismatite already anyway? Just the lodestones, not necessarily the ingots? Does that really matter much? Honestly, because I've not been doing DRMs much, I'm not too familiar with how the items are interacting there. So that's most of it. There is a Black Lion section. As always, here's a screenshot. You guys can pause the video if you want to admire that, see some of the changes they've gone through. I did notice, now I don't know whether this was the most recent patch or a previous one, I did notice that a lot of my automatic wardrobe unlockers have updated at some point, so I could get a bunch of new free items. So if you've been stockpiling those, then you can kind of go for it. I actually used them to finish off my runic armor today. Maybe I can even include some footage of that in the background. But yeah, they're giving away some free dyes, stuff like that. And finally, I want to close out by talking about this Mac update. Now, I haven't really mentioned this on my channel yet, but essentially the devs put out a forum post in which they explained that because Apple, with its Mac operating system and so on, is not going to be supporting OpenGL going forwards, and there's even going to be some other changes to the chipset, I think, ArenaNet isn't going to be following them into this new wide, weird world of whatever they're changing, and they're discontinuing Mac support. They have a whole thing for support anybody who's playing on Mac to try and get you to continue playing the game if possible. I don't know if they're going to recommend wine or whatever. Is a bit antiquated at this point, but that was announced a while ago, I think, and well, today the gem store purchases have been disabled, so you can still play Guild Wars on Mac for the next couple of weeks, I think it is, but today gem purchases have closed out. I don't know why that closes out earlier, but that's in today's patch notes because I guess that's one of the earliest things they have to go for. And what does that mean, really? Well, they're not earning much money from their Mac user base anymore anyway, and I guess it'll be easier to cut the cord going forwards. I think it's later in the month, isn't it? Well, there you go, guys. So that is some of the general changes that have come in with today's release. Obviously, there should be some exciting story. As weird as the content was in the previous release and lackluster in places, I will maintain that I liked the story, I liked the amount of dialogue, I liked where we went, and hopefully that continues here. We'll see what happens with our characters, and we'll see what happens with the Dalgymore Dwarves as well, so stay tuned for that. Of course, I'm also running my new series, End of Dragons Daily, which you guys can check out. I won't be doing an episode of that today because I want to cover the new patch, but there'll be more of that coming up as well. So thank you all, I hope you've enjoyed, I hope we have a great 2021 going forwards. I'll see you next time.